Nice work, Beach.
Perhaps you are unaware that
We don't much like you.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where we cover all things X-Men, but this week we'll be covering X-Men, the Animated Series, Season 2, the first 3 episodes. How are you today, Gary?
I'm not so great, but I'll survive. And my not greatness has nothing to do with the X-Men Animated Series.
Are you sure? Because there's some not great stuff that happens.
I'm kind of into all of this stuff in this one. I think that we can't really say all things X-Men when it's strictly like omitting the number one thing of X-Men, and the third, like it's like except for video games and comics. So we cover novels, movies, and TV shows, and that's it. Man, can you imagine if they did like a Spider-Man turn off the dark style thing for the X-Men? We'd have to do a Kickstarter to like go to New York and do it, right?
I wouldn't.
Like
we wouldn't even have to wait for a Kickstarter. Like I would just I'd be like, just pay me $5 a month. I'll buy your ticket and let's ride.
Yeah.
We'll put it on my credit card and we'll go.
Go into debt. How amazing would that be? Like,
absolutely. I'm picturing like a really flowy Magneto, like with that like
my
Pavarotti
God.
voice, like that kind of thing.
Julie
happening.
Newmar, Julie Taymor, like just flying, floating down from the sky. X marks the spot where our love had died.
Harry Potter is there for no reason.
Yeah. It's all of America's favorites.
That kid just likes to be naked in plays. That's all musicals. That's all his thing is.
He could play. I don't know. They probably add like a new character because that's what they do for these things. That would be amazing. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. This is not exclusive.
Yeah, we're very much firmly in the bad timeline. Like we're in the worst timeline right now,
absolutely.
as is proven by a number of things.
The thing, like, because Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark did so shitty, there probably will never be a big budget X-Men musical with like the music by U2.
It really is the Chalice
sucks.
Dungeons of musicals.
This is the Chalice Dungeon of life, the Chalice Dungeon of years. So we're on to season 2.
Yep.
Thanks everybody who wrote. We're recording these in a weird order, but thanks everybody who wrote in with their season 1 recap stuff. We haven't recorded that episode yet, so if we haven't addressed anything, that's why. That's what happens. However, we're on to talk about season 2, the X-Men animated series, still firmly in the good seasons of the show, or at least before it gets shipped over to like the weird animators and becomes total garbo. Jeremy, before we get into what happens this season, do you want to give us a quick recap of season 1, where we're at?
previously on X-Men.
Sure. The X-Men, a team of superpowered heroes fighting to save the world from the world that despises them, have beaten the Sentinels, Magneto, time-traveling stereotypes, and their own unrequited love for one another. The current team is Jean Grey, Cyclops, Storm, Beast, Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, Jubilee, and Professor Xavier. Cyclops proposed to Jean Grey at the end of the season, angering Wolverine, who had a major crush on her. Gambit has been doing his best to seduce Rogue, but she holds him off because A, he's super gross, and B, if he touches her, she will kill him. Beast is in prison, Jubilee is still a mall girl, and Storm is super boring.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much catches us up.
Some of the worst Storm we're going to get to in this clutch.
Ooh, boy.
So absolutely worst clutch.
We're going to see some bad Storm.
I think these first 2 episodes are excellent.
Yep.
I think, personally. And the third one is where it gets shitty. We're starting with XM 201, Till Death Do Us Part 1. Original air date October 23rd, 1993. As Jean Grey and Cyclops attempt to tie the knot, Mr. Sinister uses a brainwashed morph, to lay traps to destroy the X-Men one by one. Meanwhile, Graydon Creed begins exterminating mutants in an attempt to rid humanity of all Homo superiors. That's from the official synopsis. I don't think Graydon Creed exterminates anybody.
Nope. It does not exterminate anybody.
But,
also,
man,
just real quick, Till Death Do Us, Part 1.
Yeah. I didn't even notice that.
I can't tell if that's because we pull these from like an official website or whatever, or like the most official website I could find. I can't tell if that was just a typo, like someone just
Geocities.X-Men _ animated
Wikia.
Red Phoenix 99 fan site.
Cyclops man.
Yeah. Wikia.Cyclops man. But yeah, the Do Death Do Us, Part 1. Like, you can get the pun without that comma. Even though, like, the To Death Do Us doesn't there's danger in marriage, but that's about it. Also, how fucking hard is it to watch this now that we're living in this terrible hate world and watch Graydon Creed's like racist bullshit?
Oh, I think I call it out somewhere in the notes here. Like it really feels like it feels like there's a speech that Xavier gives, which is basically like what everybody on Twitter has been saying. Like, you have to keep fighting. We have to be strong, like in the face of overwhelming badness. And I'm like, man, I'm having a hard time.
Christ, Xavier.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time here. Like, why did you vote for a third party, Xavier? Fucking Gary Johnson, motherfucker. This is your fault. Don't tell me to be strong.
There are third party candidates. One of them couldn't name a country leader. The other one believes is like a vaccine truther. So you fucked up.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. What you've done. Now Creed is president. That shit's weird and hard to watch. Immediately dating this podcast as a week.
Yeah, somewhere between 2017 and 2021, right?
Yeah,
this podcast.
Exactly. So the rest of the podcast, look forward to more hard. I mean, I'm not trying to make the show explicitly political, but I did every time I saw they were kind of like racist, because it's the same. Like, racism is racism, right? Like,
yep.
And that's part of the awesomeness of the X-Men, is why it works so well as a metaphor for that. Is like, if you just replace mutants with this shit, with like, this is like the kind of like white nationalist bullshit that like I keep seeing on the news now, and except it's just for humans.
Yeah, when you see them spray painting stuff like "Go Home Mutants," and then like I'm looking at my Twitter feed and seeing swastikas spray painted on people's garage doors, like it makes the cartoon a lot less fun. I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
like, I definitely appreciate it when we get into like the time travel shit in a few episodes.
Yeah, because it's just a huge relief when Bishop meets his little time imp. Like, it's going to be like, oh, thank God, Bishop met the time imp.
I've never wanted Gambit to be like kind of like just sexually suggestive so much in my entire life.
Distract a sexual predator, Remy LeBeau.
Oh, Remy LeBeau.
Yes. So this episode, as per usual, we're opening up in the danger room here. But it's a little bit different because Wolverine, formal Wolverine, dressed up in his tux, is taking out his frustrations on Cyclops. So he decided not to go to the wedding at the very last minute. Decided to get all sweaty for the wedding, and then you get the sense he's purposely missing it.
Oh yeah.
He cannot do it.
Yeah.
The beginning of this is actually kind of artfully cut in this weird way. Like, these first two episodes, I think, are legitimately really great episodes of the show. And this kind of cutting back and forth between this is kind of ambitious and cool for a kid's show.
Yeah, we're cutting between the danger room where where Wolverine is taking out like these robot Cyclops people, and then going straight back to Sentinel. Yeah, right.
Can you imagine Wolverine like staying up all night and doing the coding to create that? Like his custom program. Like,
I kind of feel like this is Xavier's work. Like this screams Xavier to me. Of like, I'm going to surprise the fuck out of Wolverine today.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah.
But we're flipping between the danger room and Sentinel Cyclops, and back to the wedding of Jean Grey and Cyclops, Scott Summers, where everybody is dressed in horrible bridesmaids outfits. Which, thank you, Jean Grey. Yes. And Cyclops kind of gets well, actually, let's first talk about Gambit's activities at the wedding, because we can't go 5 minutes in this podcast without talking about how horrible Gambit is.
Gambit looks like he's from the November Rain video.
Oh.
Like, he's dressed up like he looks like he's in the reception from the November Rain video.
Let's go Gambit on a tangent and let's discuss the Teenage Dirtbags episode on the November Rain video, because I have thoughts and I've prepared a statement. But you're right, he absolutely does. He looks like he's about ready to like knock over a cake and do some cocaine with a model in the bathroom.
Yeah, and that model is just like, what's her? God damn it! So it would have been a good joke if I would have had an instant Domino. Had an instant cameo poll.
Mystique, Mystique is there dressed up as pretending to be Rogue for some reason.
Yeah, pretending to be a wedding cake. And just kind of scooting around. Like she's got the Dark Souls disguise spell on.
Absolutely. We do see somebody turn into a trash can in this episode, so that's the precedent is in there.
Table Boy. Table Boy is useful all over. Like, I'm glad Table Boy gets around in here.
But yeah, so Gambit approaches Jean, and it was like, where I'm from, we always kiss the brides. And like Jean is like, just kiss me on the cheek and go away. And then he tries to make the same approach to Rogue.
Real quick before that, I love Jean, like that is exactly what it is. Like, just like, let's get this fucking over with. Like Jean Grey in that moment is really great. And then Rogue, who was dressed like not very modestly, given that her skin kills, is not putting up with it either.
No.
Where I come from, we always kiss the bride. We always kiss the bridesmaids, too.
This ain't Cajun country, hun. Zip those lips.
Specifically says, like, well, we're not down to bayou. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly, sure, let's go.
When has that ever worked for you before, Rogue?
Yeah, seriously. And then we have this great moment where, Cyclops goes up to the preacher or the priest that, has apparently joined them in marriage and is like, hey, are you coming to the reception? And he's like, oh, no, I have miles to go before I sleep and many promises to
Beast
keep.
in disguise.
I'm like, what? Is this Beast? Yeah, exactly.
But he's real sinister, and it's showing something's up. Like there's a little bit of restraint going on. When Wolverine stabs Cyclops at this point, when it's not real, turns into a robot. Another Cyclops shows up, Mega Sentinel Cyclops. Wolverine is just getting destroyed. Like he's just getting more and more robots are coming until it knocks him unconscious. Mm-hmm. And we don't go into that. When the priest at this point, after he does his little
Robert Frost recital,
he kind of turns around and turns into like Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3 morph. He turns into like ultimate eyeshadow Robert Smith morph.
Also a character from the November Rain video.
Yeah. And it's like, oh shit, Morph's back. And we know something's wrong because he's got this terrible, like Bubsy laugh that he does. It's like,
and also his screen is green, like that he has like some sort of pulmonary disease, like something is wrong with his kidney or something, like, right?
Yeah. You said his screen was green, but I think you meant his skin.
I said, yeah, definitely.
Fucking millennials,
I definitely said
dude.
skin.
Yeah. Yeah. So we move. That's Morph. We move again. Another cut to Robert Kelly being sworn in as president. Mm-hmm. So he is actually, he's won. And if we remember, we saved, the X-Men saved his life at the end of the last season. Yep. So this is not the death knell that it could be.
And then as he's being sworn in, the screen pans out as this, which is kind of, and I've noticed this series really likes to pan out of a scene and show the scene on it being played on a TV while somebody else is watching. Like that happens way more often than I would have ever expected.
It's like a Mr. Show.
Exactly.
It's like the transitions from there. Yeah.
And we see some dude like putting on like a weird mask, like that's just like a generic, like I don't even know what to just like. It's just like a typical Halloween mask.
It's Halloween mask. He looks like a monster. So he's gonna, his intentions are clear. He's gonna fuck up the coronation. Coronation, is that what we call it when we get a new president?
No.
Swearing in ceremony.
Coronation is when we get a new king or queen.
Okay.
I know that because I have been watching The Crown on Netflix for the last 2 weeks. So.
How's that Crown?
Crown's pretty good, man. I don't know.
All right. Welcome to Crowncast.
So yeah, then we go back to the wedding. Jean Grey is throwing her bouquet, and there's this moment where she throws it, and I've not been to a lot of weddings, right? Like I think I've been to maybe 2, including my own. Usually the bride...
That's very low, man.
Yeah, it's very low. Usually the bride throws it at the bridesmaids. But Jean Grey decides just to throw it to the left.
In the middle, yeah. And it's just in the middle of nowhere, too, because it's supposed to be kind of like there's some ceremony to this.
Sure.
Jean Grey is just like, get this thing away from me. And just tosses it kind of, because Beast doesn't know what's happening. Like, nobody knows what's happening. This is the kind of thing everyone gathers up for. Yeah,
I'd like to, let's take a moment and really analyze Jean Grey's behavior. Like she's trying, she puts up with Gambit, like, and tries just to like get him off of her real quick. She's throwing this bouquet, like not caring when it goes. Do you think she's just like just really down, like she's ready? Like they're married, everything's allowed, the parents are going to be okay, and she's ready to get to that like honeymoon bed. Like, is that what's happening here?
You think she's got like a fucking flooded basement for Cyclops? Like this is just like a wide on.
I would have never used the words flooded basement, but yes, I do think she has a flooded basement for Cyclops.
It's possible that she just wants to get to it. And so, I mean, you have been married. I've been married. Like the day is just very exhausting and it's hard to concentrate on anything, right? Like it just kind of goes by really quick, and you're just like, it just goes by in a whirlwind. Like it's hard to be horny on your wedding day. Like it's not like you spend the whole time worrying something's going to go wrong, kind of managing it. So I don't think so. I think she might be distracted because of that, or second morph.
Or second morph. Or Mystique.
Yeah.
Maybe playing the long con.
Morph-steak. Yeah, she is acting real weird, and I'll chalk it up to just her wedding day. Because Cyclops is not at his best either. Like, they're both a little bit off. Beast, of course, catches it. And does his little Kelsey Grammer, like, thing. I can't remember exactly what he says.
Oh, it's some like pretty common like poetry thing, and he does this throughout the next few episodes, and it's just I think I've called him insufferable before, and I'm probably going to call him insufferable again, Gary. Like this dude, God, he just gets me.
He's not going to get sufferable. Like he's going to get his own highlight episode in this season, and it's not like he's not going to be great during that, I'm sure. So at this point we move on, and we also find out that he's like, how are you doing? Someone just like walks up and is like, how's it going, Beast? And he's like, oh, the president has pardoned me, and here's some exposition. So we find out that Kelly let him out of jail.
That line read too. Like,
so, Beast, what news do you have from our new president?
The rosiest imaginable. As senator, he arranged my bail. As president, he cleared my name.
Like, oh, yeah. Really?
Like,
he talks like this.
It's a busy day for him. So then we switch to that press conference / coronation / swearing in, and that mask guy in the mask attacks, and then we're introduced to the Friends of Humanity, who kind of says like, hey, it's a mutant lover, who are here, who's attacking. The guy with the button, the Friends of Humanity button, is Graydon Creed. Who was a huge X-Men villain in the early 90s. He's Sabretooth's dad, which comes up in the cartoon, I'm pretty sure.
I think he's Sabretooth's son in the cartoon. I don't know how. I don't remember from the comics.
Oh, no, you're right. You know what? You're right. Yeah. You're correct. It is that in this one. But it is he's Sabretooth's son. Huge 90s villain. This is straight out of the comics for him. And he's going to be, the government threat. Now, the government is okay with mutants. It's no longer Sentinels. It's the man on the street being racist dickheads.
Yep. Great. As if my life wasn't like filled with this enough. Here we are.
Totally.
We swing back to the danger room, where Jean has taken a break from her wedding festivities, which, man, I got to tell you, if at any point Autumn had walked away and went to talk to her, like not even ex, but like her unrequited love during our wedding.
The guy she definitely wants to have sex with.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
The guy that she's telling me not to worry about.
It's pretty, it's pretty suspect. Even though, like, to be fair, there is a big Wolverine-shaped hole and everything. Like, everyone's probably asking, like, hey, where's Wolverine? So she goes and she's like, hey, what the fuck? And he, sorry, Jean. I lost track of time, which is, bullshit and stuff.
I lost track of time murdering avatars of your husband.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
But I'm going to be cool about this, I promise. For the next forever, I'm going to be cool about it. Oh, yeah, did I mention I live forever? Yeah, this is nothing for me. So she's very sad, but she doesn't put up with it, like, which is great. She's just kind of like, well, good luck, get better. This is on you. And she takes off.
Yeah. So we cut back to Morph, who is in his hotel room, like, because he has a sleazy hotel room because
it's the same place where Tom Hanks lived when he moved to New York and Big.
Okay, sure. It's that joint.
It's that first room that he lived in before he got his arcade loft.
Except probably rent controlled, right? Because this is this is North, assumedly. Morph is kind of going crazy and like talking about how much he wants to hate the X-Men and also like loves the X-Men at the same time. Like you get the sense that he's going back and forth on this. And then he starts turning into the X-Men as he starts naming the X-Men, which I don't know shapeshifter etiquette, but that seems like a really weird thing to do.
It makes me think that like Morph would be really annoying at parties because like the second that doesn't get a laugh where he's not just like, hey, how about, Jimmy Kimmel, and then turns into Jimmy Kimmel. And like that doesn't get the reaction he wants. He's going to be needy as fuck. Yeah, like that's essentially his only joke. And we find out that this is like 100% Wolverine's jam. Like in the third episode, like it is like, or in the second episode of this, it's like, oh, this is the kind of content that Wolverine craze.
Yeah, Wolverine is definitely like subscribing to Morse podcast.
Yeah, his video vlog where he turns into the people he's talking about. Wolverine loves it.
What if I was George W. Bush but danced like Dolly Parton? Like that kind of bullshit.
Yeah. So when we switch again to the streets, this is all over the place. We switch to the streets, and the Friends of Humanity are, getting harassed. Like there's nobody with a safety pin around. They're getting fucked with. This one specifically, or the Friends of Humanity are doing harassing against this one specific mutant who's like, I don't have any powers. I just look fucking weird. Leave me alone.
Just real quick, props to you for not being a Morlock. Like,
oh yeah.
High five, bro. Like putting it out there. Just like, I don't have powers. I just have a weird looking face, but I'm still a guy. Like I'm still a dude. I still need to go to the store. I don't want to live in the dirty ass sewers.
It makes me just think that like that guy, like you could just have like a weird face. There was a guy in my hometown who had like these crazy kind of deformities. He was kind of infamous in my hometown. He used to walk around, ended up working at the telemarketing place my friends ended up working at and stuff. And he was like super fine guy, everything like that. But it was just like, just a really deformed dude.
And his mom was Cher, and his stepdad was
yeah. It was actually kind of the opposite of that. Like it was more like wider than longer, his face in a weird kind of way. But the like he doesn't have to be a Morlock. He's just a guy with deformities. Like this guy could just be a guy with deformities.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then this is where we see the Morlocks.
And then we see some Morlocks. Do you know, I guess one of these is Table Boy, but I don't recognize, Table Boy quickly turns into a trash can while the Friends of Humanity runs away.
I can help. Put your garbage in me.
I guess that is technically a Table Boy. You can put stuff on top of a garbage can.
Put your filth in me, I'll jerk off to it later.
Oh, Table Boy. Dial it down.
I think I'm a table man now.
That doesn't make you a table man, Table Boy.
Table man urges.
I'm just picturing that conversation happening between him and Gambit, just so you know.
Those guys would hang out like all day, like
yep.
Just you can turn to anybody. Just like a couple beers.
Let me show you a picture, yeah.
Just the grossest fucking conversation. Like, and then the rest of the X-Men just walk in on Gambit going to town on himself.
Yep. Which is the third time that we've talked about Gambit's masturbation habits on this podcast. So.
Would it be masturbation if he's fucking Table Man? I still think that like,
it's a form. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Unless Table Man is actually in the shape of Table Man, I'm gonna call it masturbation.
Yeah. I'll take that. The other Morlock who's here with the weird colors, I think she's called Beautiful Dreamer.
Okay.
I think is the name of that character. And here she's kind of like just a camouflage character, but I think she has different powers in the comics.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so the Morlocks are in trouble here. Mm-hmm. Again, showing the state of the world. Tensions are high.
We go back to the mansion where Xavier, Storm, and Jubilee are like watching all of this unfold on the news, and like there's the typical newscaster of like, we don't know what happened to cause all of these riots and things like that. And we mentioned it at the top of the podcast, but Xavier literally gives a speech that I could cut in here and you would think it was about Donald Trump being elected. 100%.
I don't understand, Professor. Why has it gotten worse?
When we saved President Kelly's life last year, he learned that not all mutants were evil. Now his followers feel betrayed. So often in our history, unhappy, misguided people have created scapegoats, blaming those that are different for the problems in their own lives.
Like, it captured exactly what people were saying over the last couple of weeks of U.S. politics. So that's fun.
In no way did we think this was going to be the case when we started doing this show, that we'd be drawing these parallels, but here they are.
In no way did I. You know what? Let's not even go there. So Xavier gets a call on his private video line, and Gary, I don't know about you. When someone says the words private video line, do you just think that like Xavier is a cam girl? Like, do you think that's what that is?
Well, or at the very least, he's getting like a video call of Lilandra flicking bean.
Sure,
like,
yeah, but private video line definitely means like sexy business and bad stuff, right? Like that's all that could possibly mean.
I would think so. Like he's a cam man. But this is it's Magneto terrible violence. Talking about like calling it's a distress signal. It gives Xavier very specific coordinates to go save him. The show doesn't quite. My first instinct watching this was like, send the fucking X-Men, but you could get this kind of what they're trying to play up. I think is this conflict where Xavier still kind of wants to have it both ways. Like he believes Magneto can be redeemed. If he sent the X-Men, they're just going to fight, But if, maybe it's possible that if he goes, he can still talk Eric down, which, like, that's an essential quality of the goodness of Xavier, is that he believes in this goodness in Eric, against all evidence.
It also shows you that Xavier is not very confident in his teaching skills, that he would just think that the X-Men would immediately fight, as opposed to, like, maybe have a conversation with Magneto.
Yeah.
Like, what are you teaching these guys to do, Xavier?
To be fair, they're batting zero on that front.
True. Yeah.
So, and at this point, kind of off camera, or maybe they showed it, I can't remember, but Scott and Jean went on honeymoon, so they're out.
Yeah, we haven't seen them yet. They'll come back in at some point, but as of right now, Jean just exited with the line like we've got a plane to catch, and then leaves.
Yeah. So Xavier puts Storm in charge.
Yep.
As she goes to meet, she's like, "Storm, you're leader of the X-Men." Nice little nod to the decade she was the leader of the X-Men in the comics.
Magneto, by the way, if we didn't mention it, was very specifically morphed, pretending to be Magneto with like a weird green screen made of fire behind him. I'm not even going to get into that technology, but I'm assuming that was robbed from aliens.
Yeah. I'm just imagining Morph like making that with construction paper and like cellophane and stuff in his hotel room.
It's definitely like those strips of construction paper with like a fan pointed up just so they can wave behind him. I made it fire. Oh yeah, that's good. So we jump back, and again we do a lot of jumps in these next two episodes. Like things are kind of all over the place. Like the season opens in a great way. Like I like all of this stuff, and it works kind of as you watch it too. Like it's interesting to watch. So we jumped to some local bar where Beast and Gambit and Wolverine are all hanging out playing pool because that's what the X-Men do.
This is all the people who didn't get married. This is the lonely boys.
Everybody's drowning in their sorrows.
Yeah. And then this lady recognizes Beast and immediately is just like way into Beast. Like really wants to bone down with Beast in a way that reminds me a lot of Irma from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Just like, oh, the president? Like this weird, like just like no recognition of the fact that you're talking to
a giant blue furry monster.
Yeah, like a big beast, just immediately goes for him. And Gambit, consummate wingman that he is, like he doesn't care who's having sex as long as it's somebody. Like it doesn't have to be him. It's just like, she like you even more. Now he good friends with the president, you see, like, and he's just like pushing him, and Beast doesn't want this. Like it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
the whole thing's unfortunate. Beast
was put off by that Jersey accent that this chick rolls up. Do you know the point? I can't even do a Jersey accent. I don't know. I can't do accents. Period. I don't know why I'm fucking trying. But he's obviously put off by it completely. But like and then Wolverine over there like play pool, Gumbo, because that's his nickname.
It's like
Gambit now.
I love that. Shut up and play pool. Like I need this to forget my misery.
And then in a great moment of. And again, I've been watching like a lot of X-Men cartoons lately and just noticing some patterns of like the X-Men and their enemies never just go through a door to do anything. Like literally the wall of this pool hall explodes. Like just boom. And there's like a bunch of like Friends of Humanity, like dudes out there. And there's this scene where like Gambit and, Beast go to each side of the hole in the wall, and Beast picks up a pool ball with his foot, tosses it up to his hand, and then tosses it over to Gambit. And I'm like, you fucking insufferable asshole. Just like, you don't need, either you could have just tossed it with your foot, and I know you could have. No, you had to like delay and catch it with your hand. Like, are you some kind of fucking juggler? And I know you are. Like, I know that you're a juggler. And I know that's what you're referencing right now.
He's a juggler. I think that what this is, I mean, he's being insufferable. The rest of the scene, the way it plays out, though, is I think that what they're going for, and whether it does it or not, is that these are, like I said, these are lonely boys. They are blowing off steam, and they don't realize exactly what kind of threat this is. So this whole thing, they're kind of not taking it super seriously. Like when, Beast takes the gun and puts it on, grabs one of their blasters and goes up to the side of the building. He's just kind of hanging out, He doesn't really understand, like they don't understand the consequences of this, except for Wolverine, who's fucking furious. He's just like sardines in a can. Like he's gonna, like if they didn't stop him, he was going to eat one of the Friends of Humanity. Like
he has issues, waiting all day. He's backed up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he's just
100%. But this was all Creed's plan, was to make the mutants look like, make them defend themselves and then show them being shitty.
Yeah, Creed has a cameraman filming all of this and making it really seem like the X-Men have attacked these like innocent humans that are all wearing like the same fucking
shirt,
uniform,
stupid beret. Yeah, yeah. So they're trying to leave. Beast picks up their car so they can't leave. Again, just kind of it seems like they're kind of having fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the sirens come and Beast is like,
"A crime scene is no place for a recent recipient of a presidential pardon."
It's like,
and then Wolverine like, "Yeah, I probably have a parking ticket. I got to get the fuck out of here too."
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So again, they're having fun. They don't really understand the character assassination that's being done on them. The rest of the team, though, does get to see, the
rest of the team is watching this unfold again on the news. Storm goes to try to talk to Xavier, but Xavier has left this message like basically saying, I got to go on a personal mission, which like, again, like if you're going to see Magneto, maybe you should tell somebody you're going to see Magneto.
Totally. What if Magneto's going to trap you and they have to rescue you?
And 99.9% of the time, like Magneto is probably trying to trap you. Like,
yeah,
it's going to happen.
I think that they have an uneasy piece. At the end of the last season, they teamed up to fight the Sentinels. Sure. Like at this point, I can buy it. What I can't buy, and this is something I don't think I told you to cut this for the actual audio thing, but please do, is Morph sneaking into the mansion here and doing the fucking Rob Schneider joke. How hard did your jaw hit the floor when this happened?
Oh my God.
I totally forgot about this. And he does it in his like evil mutant voice. And goes,
making copies.
Making copies. And it's like, what the fuck am I watching?
And I looked this up because this is the kind of thing that gets me. Like, I looked this up, and the air date on this, I believe, was like October of 93. Yeah. And I looked up the original SNL clip, and that came out in like January of 91. So this is the guy, like you know this guy from high school that wouldn't let the Ace Ventura quotes go until like Ace Ventura 4 came out.
Yeah,
like,
baby. Yeah.
That's Morph.
Yeah, just keeping it up. It's amazing. Like, and he definitely does it to the camera. It's definitely a weird little bit of fourth wall breaking.
It's like it's really weird. It's like, and you could tell they were really proud of this like making copies joke. And I'm like, that's not even your network, dog. You're on Fox.
In the last episode, Cyclops did that not joke as well, which like
always
is just sending the humor in this thing is just out of control. Super amazing. But like the way that the golden lining, the silver lining to like everything in the show, where like the way he actually. Because the first season I was pretty critical of sending Morph in that team mission. Like, what the fuck is this guy even doing in the X-Men? Mm-hmm. He dismantles this team like pretty great.
This is all like really good. This is awesome.
Fantastic.
Like, and this is all improv. Like, he had no idea what he was walking into. Like,
he just like what you could do if you know people and are like willing to fuck with them.
Yeah,
he's weaponizing his friendship. Which is thematically sound and important in this.
So let's walk people through what he does. He walks into the mansion. He watches Wolverine leave in a hiffy because that's what Wolverine does. So he assumes the form of Wolverine. He impersonates Rob Schneider as Wolverine, which if Wolverine had seen would probably crack him the fuck up.
Yeah. He was just doing that for Wolvie to watch on the security camera later and him just to laugh for like a day.
Like, he snuck in, but he said the making copies thing. So he walks in and he runs into Rogue, who says that she's going to go take a nap in the, quote, rec room, which, as we've seen before, is like the room where they watch their news, the room where they play their video games, and the room where they
wreck it.
Cuff up, and also in cuff up Sabretooth. Like, let's not forget.
Yes.
So
it's
a busy room to take a nap in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we see Rogue walking into some sort of room where they watch the news in, where Jubilee and Gambit is. Rogue kicks Jubilee out.
Yeah,
pissing Jubilee off,
specifically like giving Gambit like a horny grin.
Yeah,
like
this is a really horny episode, Gary.
This is super horny because like she's just giving Gambit those like fuck me eyes, and Gambit's like, you listen to Rogue Petit. Like Gambit gets like as serious as he's ever been in his life. I think we've compared him to Ken Marino in Wet Hot American Summer as like the guy who talks about getting laid all the time.
Yes,
but like never has actually had sex,
and is terrified of it probably.
This is the Ken Marino scene where he's just like, no, this is serious. Like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna turn my entire life from a lie to a truth. It's gotta happen.
It's gotta happen. So he kicks Jubilee out. Jubilee gets mad and like blows up part of the X Mansion because why not?
Because Jubilee that's Jubilee.
Rogue tells Gambit that she's going to be in the rec room, and
before that she says like, "What if I was lying about being able to control my powers?" And like no follow up question. Gambit like just instantly just like seems legit. I'll buy it.
And Gambit has seen her powers at work. Like he knows.
Like, she's saying not that she doesn't have the powers, but she can control them.
I just like
so,
why
like,
would you ask like why have you been lying about this?
Well, yeah, totally. Like what a fucked up thing to lie about. Like your entire life. Like all those people I put into a coma, it was on purpose. You know. Like,
what's the dude? What's the little dude from the? What's the dude from her high school or whatever? Aaron or Paul?
Cody.
Cody. Yeah, poor fucking Cody.
Cody almost died.
She did that on purpose.
Yeah, because she's evil. However, you might be able to get your dick wet. So come on, let's party. Like, ridiculous. So
Rogue walks out, and then instantly we of course it's Morph. And he like makes some jokes and like crackles along at himself. Turns into Storm. Goes and finds Jubilee and tells Jubilee, like, hey, I want you to go on a mission on your own to save this mutant in trouble. Which also needs some follow-up questions because Jubilee, like, has never been allowed to do this. And I know, like, as a teenager, like, this is your parents letting you stay at home by yourself when they go on vacation. And I get it.
That's the point, because he overheard, like, because, I mean, Jubilee was whining about, like, not getting trusted or whatever to go do stuff. So, like, he's preying on Jubilee, saying, like, hey, this is your first big girl mission. You know, this is part of him like weaponizing his knowledge of the team. You know, like he knows that she would go along with this and ask questions because she's been wanting to get trusted this whole time. It's still pretty fucked up, but like I'll buy it.
Sure.
And there's a super dark line where he's like, "This is what you get for thinking you can replace me." And like,
why are you threatened by like I don't remember what we decided her age was in this cartoon, but like in the comics, she's like 13 and a half, right? Like we came to that conclusion. So yeah, why are you threatened by a 13 and a half year old like mall girl? Yeah. So we then cut to Gambit walking in on Rogue, where he decides like, well, she came on to me earlier. Now she's sleeping. I guess I can make out with her. Like and and this is going to like clash later because he very specifically later says that Gambit doesn't go where Gambit's no invited.
Right, which like that is so false. Noted sexual predator right in the bottle.
Yeah, you have proven that wrong.
But like this like because implied consent is a thing, right? Like you can you're with somebody for a long time, you're sleeping, you can kind of roll over and grab their boob and see if they're into it. You know, like that's okay. You've been with them for a long time. Like that's a thing. You know, like you're married. You don't have to like sit down and have a deposition every time you want to like, kiss their neck.
Maybe
right?
You don't.
Like, but like this is literally going to be their second physical contact ever. And he's just going to move immediately to like I'm going to touch your boob while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Come on, dude.
So the very obvious thing happens. Like Rogue's power activates. He gets knocked unconscious. She touches the couch, and then like the arm of the couch explodes, which is just funny to me.
She doesn't know how to control it because she that's usually what happens with her. Jubilee shows up at the Veterans Club. Oh shit! Just you putting that in quotes though reminded me that mutant from earlier. Who is being menaced by the Friends of Humanity is in front of a gigantic big box looking store that just says burgers. Like it's got like doors, like automatic doors. It's just a big gray, huge monolithic building that just says burgers.
There's
no
some
windows,
good
no
signage in these two episodes. And then in the next episode, and we'll get to it. Like the Friends of Humanity are having like a thing at like the Film Mart.
Which is the Film Mart. Burgers, Veterans Club. It's supposed to be like a VFW, but they don't want to, They don't want to show that.
They don't want to get too real.
Yeah.
So the real Rogue meets up with Storm carrying Gambit and like complaining that like he's like, I tried to warn him, like, you can't blame me on this. Like, he tried to kiss me when I was asleep. Storm is like calling Gambit a fool, and like, I just love all of this.
Everyone just bad mouthing Gambit while he's knocked out.
It doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but I still love it a lot.
Even if it doesn't even have to do with their powers, like the damn fool kept trying to kiss me after I told him no multiple times. It's already pretty gross. And then this, this mutant incident shows up on the news. They try to get Jubilee, but they can't. And it's like, well, fuck. Storm contacts Beast, says like, hey, meet me at this site. We're going to get Jubilee. Beast says yes, but that turns out to be Morph. because Morph put the real Beast in the danger room and cranked it up too high. The danger room has danger settings.
Yeah, the danger room basically has the same controls as my oven. Like it's bake, broil, temperature gauge, high, low.
Yep. So like this is very, very good. And
this whole scene, Beast. By the way, I don't like this at all. Like Beast are just flipping around the danger room. The danger room, like a turret pops out and like shoots a missile at Beast, and it doesn't explode. It doesn't come with knives. It looks like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I don't even know how to describe. It's like a weird like fishing lure. Like it's like it's just something weird. I don't know what it is or what it's supposed to be. But this whole scene I thought was dumb. So
it's pretty bad. It's no good. But this is kind of all, so then they show up, the Friends of Humanity march on this mutant counseling center.
Again, great signage.
Start throwing grenades. Storm and Rogue show up. Rogue is like, I can't control myself.
Rogue does her normal thing where she like tries to pick up a big tall bat thing. In this case, it was a light pole, and then doesn't realize she's going to like gambit it and drop it on and make it explode.
Which, like, to me, like, you have gloves. Gambit's powers don't work through gloves. Like, but anyway. So at this point, she tries to leave. Storm is like, no, Beast will be here. It's fine. But Beast won't be here. Storm tries to fight them by summoning the Arctic cold to cool their ardor.
Fucking Storm.
And Morph, who showed up here to knock down the final domino, tricks them into shooting, shows up with the cops and tricks the cops into shooting Storm at full energy. So it also just has a high setting on their guns.
Yep.
And the cops, for their credit, try to resist, but they get ordered to do it anyway.
Yep.
Storm gets blasted, and like single-handedly, Morph, like the shittiest and weakest of the X-Men, just took out all of them.
I mean, just like this is perfect. Like Morph just like you made the comment earlier. Just dismantled this team, and just like I love all of this. Like this is like supreme supervillain shit right here.
It's very good. This is what shapeshifters should do. Like
this is the best supervillain plan we've seen yet. Like Magneto was literally just knocking over cans of chemicals at a chemical plant. Right? Like no kind of forethought into this. And again, I'm super impressed by this because when Morph walked in there, he didn't know Rogue was going to go take a nap. He didn't know that Jubilee was going to get mad for not having enough responsibility. I mean, apparently he knew about Gambit's sexual proclivities, but I mean, at that point, I'm pretty sure like that he's got a blog talking about that.
Yeah, so. he's been on certain message boards at certain times.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. And these kind of episodes where one person on the team is secretly evil or mind controlled or shapeshifter or something like this are kind of a trope. On certain cartoons. I remember seeing this a lot when I was younger, but they're always effective for me, and they always stress me out in like a real serious way. Like this stresses me out. Like, no guys, no, it's really Morph. Like
I don't like it when characters like keep obvious secrets with each other from each other.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff really bothers me. And like shapeshifting stresses
tell John
me.
That the Riverlands, the Knights are coming. Knights of the Vale are on their way, goddammit.
Yeah, tell him.
Yeah.
This is not hard.
Fucking A. This is stupid.
So after Storm collapses and is put into the ambulance, the view zooms out, and once again we're watching a TV, and we see Mr. Sinister for the first time, who kind of just vaguely waves his hand, and I guess he's got like a Logitech Harmony in there that he just shut the TV off with, and then then we see like him, and man, Mr. Sinister has a great design in this, like with the weird teeth and the red ruby on his forehead and the white skin and like the crazy things behind him, like on his outfit. Like all of this is super good and super bad at the same time. I really dig it.
Amazing that they managed to make all of these goofy villains like Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse. The cartoon manages to make them like threatening. Mm-hmm. Like Mr. Sinister, who like is a lipstick wearing like sharp tooth, super dandy, like whose name is Mr. Sinister, like
who introduces himself as "My name is Sinister, Mr. Sinister." Like what? Ridiculous.
Like it is, it makes no sense. But they still managed to make him like pretty badass and cool in the cartoon, I think. Mm-hmm. And just this was his plan. His plan fucking kicked ass. So we get to this new outro, which is no longer the weird action figure versions.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that for completionist sake. Like, we don't get that cool, like, CGI, Lawnmower Man CGI stuff. So it's just, like, scenes from the... you know what this reminds me of? This is the letdown that I had when I went to Doctor Strange recently, and the new Marvel Studios logo doesn't do the cool comic book thing anymore. It's just clips from the previous movies, and it's garbage.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, so... So then we move on to the second part of this two-part opener, XM202 Till Death Do Us, Part 2. Original air date October 30th, 1993. Mr. Sinister and the Nasty Boys. And if you're going, wait, what? We will get to that. Like, my friend, we will get to the Nasty Boys. Kidnap Cyclops and Jean Grey while the X-Men battle Morph at the mansion. After finally defeating Morph, the X-Men arrive to Sinister's island and must fight the Nasty Boys in order to free Cyclops and Jean. And this is one of my single favorite episodes of the show, just because of the Nasty Boys here.
Yeah, the Nasty Boys are some of the best character work and voice acting combinations that we've seen in the show yet, and it's just superb. And oh my god, I love. Let's go in order. Let's go in order.
Before we get to the, just real quick while we're on Nasty Boys, the Wikipedia entry for the Nasty Boys contains this sentence. Self-proclaimed nasty boy, slab-faced X Factor member strong guy before the full team appeared. Self-proclaimed nasty boy.
Self-proclaimed. Like, did he just put it as like a, I don't know, like, did he put it as like his Twitter name for the week or what? What is he doing? Oh my god.
This is, and just the fact that these guys are under Mr. Sinister and stuff, like everything about the Nasty Boys is my aesthetic.
So since we're doing pulled from the Wikipedia page on Nasty Boys, if you're still on that page, look around and see that they very specifically say that it's Nasty Boys with an S, not Nasty Boys with a Z.
Yeah. What amazing restraint you had, Chris Claremont. Great job.
Seriously.
Yeah. Anywho. So we start with Psyche and Jean on their boat. And they're just like literally just like saying romantic one-liners. Like Jean is like, Scott says like, there's no one around for miles. And Jean's like, oh, Scott, I've never been this happy before. And like falls in his arms and shit. Like they're super, super in love just in a boat in the middle of nowhere is their idea of perfect honeymoon.
And I just have to bring it up, like, I love it when the X-Men get to wear civilian clothes, and when Cyclops goes full suburban white boy boat. I love it. He's got, like, the baggy sweater, but with the shorts. Oh, it's so good.
It's very good. Camp Psych. Beast is still in the danger room flipping around. Dealing with these things shooting at him, which is a long time.
We spend a long time with Beast flipping around, and we're not going to spend much time with it on the show because that's all you need to know.
Yeah, he flips around a lot. But then Morph goes out to meet Mr. Sinister at the gates of the mansion to like let him in, and Morph is like, "My friends, what are you doing?" And Mr. Sinister is like using his mind control, hypnosis, like just kind of manipulation of him, like. It really looks like he has mind control powers in the cartoon. Mm-hmm. I don't think he really does in the comics. I think what's happening is he's just keeps saying like, "Hey, they wouldn't have left you behind."
Well, we find out later that it's not specifically mind control. That like there's something implanted in Morph's brain that he's using. So like it's not quite mind control, but it's definitely some like supervillain. Like I'm going to put this shit in your brain, and it's definitely not going to affect any of your motor functions because I'm really qualified.
Yeah.
We see him like getting Morph back on to try to kill the X-Men, and like Morph does that whole thing again where he's like, "They're my friends, Wolverine," and turns into Wolverine, Storm, and turns into Storm. Like still, like again,
like nobody's laughing. Morph, stop.
We go back to Boat Jean and Boat Psych, and they're again bragging that there's nobody around, and then as soon as they say there's nobody around, we hear like
ahoy! On the sailboat!
Woo-hoo! You in the boat!
This is, I mean, it sounds like before anybody calls Jeremy out for doing a gay voice during this, the Nasty Boys are very flamboyant.
Yes. Yeah, like I'll cut it in probably over my little Yoo-hoo thing right there, and it's very, like, it's out there. It's hilarious.
Like, the fact that they essentially work for, like, the supervillain equivalent of Tim Curry in Rocky Horror.
Yep.
You know, and like
accurate.
These like everything about the Nasty Boys is fantastic. So they're going to this uninhabitable island for their honeymoon. They're just like, let's honeymoon at Sinister Island.
I don't know where. I mean, we've both been married. I don't know where you took your honeymoon. I went to Italy because it's awesome.
Yes.
It was great.
You just go to a city with restaurants and booze.
Yeah.
And then this guy starts jumping from rock to rock, and this is our introduction to Ruckus. And this guy's outfit,
dude,
like
it's so amazing.
God, do I love Ruckus? And he's like, I have a message for you. And Cyclops is just like, this guy is dressed like a supervillain, Cyclops. Like, I understand you think that he might just be handing you like a new wave mixtape, but your life should teach you something. He is going to hurt you. And, Cyclops yells, so go ahead. And Ruckus screams and destroys their boat, like capsizes their boat.
Cyclops, I'm really disappointed in you. You were literally the original X-Man. Like, you were the first X-Man. I'm assuming that you spend time, like, looking at supervillain dossiers. Like, you should have recognized what is happening. You should have never said, go ahead with your message. Just blast the dude.
he's not on your ham radio at home. Like, you don't have to do
it's the equivalent of somebody texting you with a green bubble. They don't have an iPhone. You don't need to talk to them.
This entire podcast is going to be like, years of us just going, learn! Get the X-Men. So pretty fantastic. Ruckus is my aesthetic. I love Ruckus.
Can we talk about this Ruckus clip? Because I've read the Wikipedia article on the Nasty Boys, by the way. I just spent a lot of time on it. And this particular line of specifically talking about Ruckus, where he once hit a grocery store, severely wounded the store clerk, and blasted his way through police just to get some free beer.
Go Ruckus.
Go Ruckus.
You're my man. This guy knows how to party. He also, the way his power works in the cartoon, he just kind of yells really loud. Mm-hmm. In the comics, he gathers sound from away from him and can like amplify it. So he is like a one-man party. Like, he shows up with the free beer and he just stands next to your acoustic guitar and like amplifies it out of his mouth. Like, he is a human amplifier.
He's he's a guy that you want in your band. Like, he's like an instrument you play in your band, but not in your band at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then they're attacked by the rest of the Nasty Boys. Showing up, who's the first one here? You have it as the guy with the longest eyelashes. I don't know who you're quite referring to, though.
I think it's Strong Guy. Not Strong Guy, but like they're
Slab.
Slab, thank you. Yeah.
The self-proclaimed Nasty Boy Slab.
Yeah, so the guy who like puts that shit out there on his resume. He just really does, like, his eyelashes were very distracting to me.
Yeah. He's bald, but they just give him these huge huge eyelashes for some reason.
And then
Hairbag
he
attacks with the rest of them.
Shows up with this horrible Jamaican Rasta patois that, oh man,
Hairbag makes no sense. And when the actual, it doesn't happen yet. When the X-Men show up, they keep guessing their nicknames.
No,
it's real ridiculous. So then Sinister shows up, knocks out Jean Grey, and they're putting collars on him. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous George is the one who puts the collars on him, who is like a big tar creature with an Australian accent, because this is just a collection of fun accents.
Why not?
There's lots of things you can say about Mr. Sinister as far as it being a villain, but at the very least, he's multicultural as fuck.
Yeah, he's international. He's the international supervillain.
But between this and the Marauders, like, he is very, very into people from all cultures. And so Gorgeous George, the tar creature with the trench coat, stretches out and he's like, "These are out of fashion in Genosha," and puts the collar on Cyclops, so they no longer have their powers.
Yeah.
Well, shit. And this is where he introduces himself. "My name is Sinister, Mr. Sinister."
And then we go back to Rogue and Beast hanging out, and they do what any normal friends would do when their friend gets shot by a high energy laser and gets taken to the hospital. They climb up the wall, break into the window, and then read her medical report without her permission.
Yes. Purpa.
And I love this because Beast reads the medical report and like just tells Rogue like, "Oh, she's gonna be fine. She just needs to have some time." Like, that's his professional fucking diagnosis. Thanks, McCoy.
he doesn't know how to read, and he's guessing that. Like, he learned all his poetry from books on tapes. Like, if I saw anybody in a coma and picked up their medical chart, I could tell you that they just need time. Like, if there was something they needed, they would have fucking done it, McCoy. Yeah. But the important thing here is that they're like arguing, and it's like, hey, you said you were going to show up, and he's like, I do not know what you mean. So they're kind of going back and forth, and then they get out of there because the cops are showing up. Like, they're not even getting really a second to breathe. And kind of take stock, which is like always the big plot hole in these imposter kind of mind control situations. Like, why is no one fucking talking to each other? Yep. And the cartoon, for to give it credit, is like the characters are talking to each other, but they're not having time to sit down and figure it out just yet because things are just moving way too quick.
At this point, we go to, and this is the place I mentioned earlier, which is like a film mart or film market or something, and where the Friends of Humanity have rented it out, like much like you can do to your local theaters, I'm sure, to give a presentation. And in this case, the presentation is to execute a mutant. Like, what the hell?
Pretty dark. And Jubilee has a pretty good sense of humor about this whole thing, for some reason I don't quite understand. But they bring her out, and she's like, "What did we ever do to you?" And this line right away sticks in my head where Creed goes like, "You were born."
Creed's little speech here is really good too. Like, he's kind of got like a Baptist preacher flow going, like where he's really working the crowd up. Like, I feel like that he has some experience working a crowd up to kill somebody before. Like, this isn't his first rodeo.
No. He was just a regular racist before mutants came along.
He just hated black people.
And then he's just like, bingo. Yeah. Can you imagine the field day that shitty white supremacists would have right now if mutants showed up? Like, it'd just be like Christmas and their birthday all in the same moment.
It would be like, you know what? I was going to say it'd be like November 8th, 2016.
It is, it's raw.
It's a wound that has not healed. Wolverine shows up because Wolverine, the last time we saw him, he was all angrily leaving despite Storm asking him to stay, which is the third or fourth time that's happened. But he's been tracking Jubilee. He very quickly knocks out all of these people and leave out of a window. And he talks about sniffing bubblegum to find her, which makes me think that Jubilee has just been A, spitting out bubblegum, and B, putting more bubblegum in her mouth, leaving it like it's fucking breadcrumbs.
It's just they just let her have it.
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's either that or listen to her talk, right, fellas?
They get back to the mansion. Gambit wakes up, and they're like, they're still fighting. Everyone's, everything's going apart. This is where Gambit says, you told Gambit a little kiss won't hurt. And she, of course, says, no, you didn't. You snuck a kiss and got what was coming to you. And then Gambit says, Gambit don't never go where he no invited, which is categorically
untrue.
Yeah. Gambit, who has, I think I've been debating whether to say it because it's fucking gross, but I texted you this after this. Was like, oh, Gambit, who has definitely fingered a girl while she's sleeping.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
There's literally no way that hasn't happened before in his life.
Thank God Gambit didn't grow up in an era where we all had phones and camera phones and video phones in our pocket, because he would be that guy.
He'd be in jail.
He would definitely be in jail. Gambit should be in jail.
Out of all the terrorists that we root for in this show, by far. Gambit, definitely the person who goes, even though does he become a vampire at some point? Because that could be a foreshadowing thing. I feel like he might be on I know he turns into the Horseman Death, but anywho, Xavier shows up. I think Jubilee runs into this. This either happens in this episode or last episode, but Jubilee's token spot on the team to tell everybody the TV's on, to run in a room where everyone's fighting and be like, hey guys, the TV.
Well, you remember from season 1 when she walked in and was like, hey guys, guess who wants to talk to us? That's her only purpose on the X-Men. That's her mutant powers, announcing things that the X-Men need to hear.
It's something similar to that happens in these episodes, which is really good.
Xavier shows up and is like, I have detected there's a mutant with a neurotransmitter or neurodisruptor that's causing us all to feel weird. And at that point, Wolverine walks in with Jubilee and...
Real quick before that's discredited, that's super plausible.
Absolutely.
How smart is that? Morph, you are way smarter than I ever gave you credit for.
If Morph had just spent 10 minutes throwing on some of the Professor Xavier's aftershave and right? But of course Wolverine walks in and immediately smells that it's actually Morph and starts freaking out. There's a scuffle. Wolverine knocks over Xavier / Morph's floating ridiculous. Have we talked about how ridiculous his chair is, by the way? His floating chair, it just doesn't. It's huge. It's way bigger than an actual wheelchair. It must be harder to get around.
every time he goes to like a place that he has to go around to the back to the dock entrance and come in through the storeroom. Yes.
Which makes it even funnier that every time he gives it like a speech to Congress, like he has to go around the servants' interests or whatever.
Yeah, just lower him from the ceiling.
So there's a scuffle. Wolverine knocks him over. Xavier / Morph says, kill him or something. And Gambit's like, oh, I'd never heard Xavier talk that way before. And charges up a card and throws it at him. And of course, Morph like jumps up and like runs away, proving that he's not Xavier. But then also the card fizzles out, which doesn't make any sense with what we know about Gambit's powers, which is, I mean, it works fine in the scene, but like, how does Gambit control it?
We've seen him do like a small charge before. I feel like we've maybe seen this before.
Okay, well, I'll let it go. I'm not too worried about it.
Regardless of which, Morph gets to make the like, guess what, I'm cured joke, which like whenever anybody gets revealed to be impersonating Professor Xavier, that's my favorite thing they can do. And it's legitimately like a really funny, quick-witted thing to do at that point.
And Morph dances around like Toad does from the first X-Men movie. He's just doing a little jig. He's like, not only can I walk, y'all, I can dance.
And I can sing. So he gets into a fight with Wolverine, and Jubilee literally says, "Which one do I shoot?" Like just like that fucking movie.
Yeah, the next few episodes, this season has a lot of I guess it's the opposite, but like X-Men 1 has a lot of references to things that happen in this cartoon. It's kind of funny. But yeah, Morph throws a plasma grenade down, distracts him, runs to the jet. Wolverine and Jubilee show up in the jet, which does not make any sense to me at all, but whatever. Wolverine does this thing where he's trying to convince Morph that Cyclops did the right thing, leaving him behind, and then, like, at the same time beating his ass, which I think is it's like the loving.
You may look
thing.
like me, but you can't fight like me. I think he says.
Yeah,
that could come later too, but he says something like that.
And then, Jubilee does her like thing where like she shoots the wrong one, and then Morph gets away on the Blackbird. And Wolverine, like, tries to chase the jet, which I guess he doesn't have a clear understanding of his own mutant powers at that
jets.
point.
Yeah. So we go back to Mr. Sinister revealing his plan to them. And apparently Cyclops and Jean are the perfect genetic specimens. They're going to have a baby that is, like, the world's most powerful mutant. This is all ridiculous. It's all exactly canon.
Yep.
Like, this is all, like... Mr. Sinister raised Cyclops in like an orphanage because he has like super perfect, mega DNA. They went back in time and found him in the 1800s and shit. Like, this is all canon. It's really ridiculous if you were just getting exposed this one little bit. And I'm not saying it's a good story, but legitimately this is Mr. Sinister's motivation.
Yep.
Is to make Jean Grey and Cyclops have sex to make Cable. So
yeah, man, that's a plan. Like, it's really sad that Morph's plan makes more sense to me than Mr. Sinister's does. Like, all Morph is looking for is revenge. Like, he just wants to kill these dudes and to cause as much chaos as possible. Mr. Sinister just wanting Scott Summers and Jean Grey to fuck is really weird. Like, and
they were on their honeymoon, dog.
Yeah,
like
you could have probably just
chilled
waited.
Out.
Yeah,
yeah. Like this, you were already winning this battle. Like, just wait for her to have a baby. They're married. Like, why replace their priest and put their marriage into doubt? Like, let them get legit married. They're gonna bone down and have a baby, man.
I'm just going to say this. Like, I don't have a supervillain handbook, but I bet if they had like a series of supervillain acts rated by difficulty, making two people have sex and have a baby is probably like a 10. Stealing a baby is probably like a 2.
Yeah,
he's playing on hard mode, and I don't really get that.
Yeah, it's pretty confusing.
But during this, he does like the weirdest thing possible, which is like using some weird power thing. He makes a tentacle come out of the floor, and the tentacle has a weird like salivating mouth on it. He walks over to Scott and like we don't see it happen, but it's very clear that he's put this on Scott's body somewhere. I'm assuming his junk, right? It's got to be his junk.
Yeah, he's got to get his cummies.
Yeah,
like
please never say the word cummies again.
Cole started it.
I know.
People keep blaming me for that, but it was him.
I asked Cole not to say that again. And then comes back with a crystal, and boy, that had to hurt. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, urinary crystals are intense.
And also, it's orange, which tells me that, like, maybe his medical insurance hasn't been really working for him lately. You got to get that checked out.
The one thing I like about this a lot, though, is that like Mr. Sinister's powers are creepier and more organic and like just unnerving than any of their major villains we've seen so far. Like his powers are ill-defined, just like Apocalypse's are. Mm-hmm. But this is legitimately like pretty gross and creepy and weird. This whole biofort he has is like awesome.
Yeah, it's super. Like it's like you mentioned this earlier, but it's very threatening. Like I wouldn't want to be in the situation that Cyclops and Jean Grey are in right now. Like just don't. It's scary. Like to be strapped up while this dude with basically fangs like is like putting these weird tentacles on your junk. Like that's not a great situation for anybody. Like that's
anything he's gonna do is no good. Like and this is Mr. Sinister is a really good X-Men villain for this reason. I think. We get this other flashback of Morph just kind of putting him, rescuing him, and then putting this weird little bug. He has these little bio powers into his head to control him.
Oh, we're not quite there yet. I don't think.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. We So from here we see we go back to Storm in the hospital.
Oh, you're right.
Jubilee waking her. She's awake, and Jubilee's telling her about Morph. Then Morph shows up on the island. At this point, it's pretty confusing. Like Morph's mental state is not great. Like I don't think that he realizes he's working for Mr. Sinister. His only goal here is to murder Cyclops before leaving him behind. He finds Mr. Sinister has taken a breather. Like he's gone to play pool. He's not in his weird lab anymore. But he rolls up on Scott and Jean all basically like strapped down, and Scott is overjoyed to see Morph. He's like, "Oh my God, you're alive!" And and Morph makes a joke about like, "Oh, you just got married," and then turns into the priest and is like, "Or did you?"
What a sucker punch. Oh my God, you're alive. Oh my God, you're not actually married. Bam. They're
super awesome supervillain move. Like Morph is killing it right now.
Yeah, Morph. This is making you this. If he didn't have such a fucking obnoxious voice and a predilection for early '90s SNL, this would make him a great X-villain.
I'm just a caveman X-Man. I am confused.
So this is where we find out about the bug that he puts in his head.
Yeah,
my bad. And the X-Men finally show up. They're just like, oh shit, like we should go check in on Scott and Jean. Morph is here, that's what he wants revenge on. Wolverine's like, no, we're going. We're going to go get Morph. They get there. The X-Men blow up the side of the lab from the outside, and we're in like a big fight.
Yep.
Between the X-Men and the Nasty Boys. This picture you got here, man, talk about fucking squad goals, dude. Like,
tag yourself, Gary. Tag yourself.
Like 7 Mary 3. Hairbag.
I would definitely Gorgeous George. I'm gonna call that right now.
Yeah, and you'd have to marry Ruckus because fucking Hairbag is not getting married.
No,
and I will.
Hairbag's name is Hairbag. I mean, like, do you want to? I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Hairbag. Is that what's gonna happen?
Hairbag. He's also could be like inconsistent height bag. Because here in this picture, he's like 3 feet tall. This is part of the animation of the show. But every once in a while, he's kind of presented as like a big, strong guy. Like he's kind of just like Slab, except with poison breath.
Poison breath. I'm picturing Hairbag like on the phone with AT&T, like trying to sign up for service, and he's like, "What's your name?" It's like, "Oh, it's Hairbags." Like, can you spell that? Yeah. Nope. Sure can't.
like literally cannot.
Slab. This fight goes on for a little while. It's pretty fun. Like all of the characters get to use their powers. The Hairbag goes after Wolverine. Storm goes after Slab. Slab gets knocked over to Wolverine. Wolverine makes a joke about 2-on-1 being more of an even fight. Hairbag like poisons Wolverine with his breath.
He's got super breath.
Super breath. Sure.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. And then, like, there's a whole mix of stuff that happens. Like, I've got a brief thing, but it was... I just saw that Beast quotes Alfred Tennyson at the end of this. I'm just so aggravated.
Yeah. This is also where Wolverine guesses Hairbag's name. He's like, like, what do you want to do about it, Hairbag? And he's like, Hairbag, how do you guess my name? And it's like, wait, what? Like... Well, you're a supervillain. You can make up whatever you want. Like this guy over here calls himself Gorgeous George. Why would you call yourself Hairbag? At least be like Sexy Pete.
Sure, absolutely. Sexy Pete is okay. Oh man,
they all make sense except for you, Hairbag.
Hairy Larry, right?
Yeah, he's also dressed up like a weird little miniature Magneto. He's like a bootleg Magneto in his outfit.
He's got
like his color scheme and stuff.
So like looking at this, and then this picture will definitely be either in the show notes or like on our Twitter when this goes out. But like looking at this picture, those are like Speedos, right? Like he's furry and he just pulled these Speedos up over his fur. So like some of that fur under there is like chafing and pulling. Like it cannot be comfortable. Like, man,
no. But
so
these guys are great. This is a good fight.
Yeah,
I like this fight quite a bit. And they wouldn't, so the Nasty Boys get taken out because they're still just the Nasty Boys. They're not going to match the X-Men. And then Sinister starts fucking up the X-Men, and he's awesome. Like they can't do anything to him. He's kind of like liquid, made of like this liquid stuff. They can't win until eventually Scott convinces Morph to help. Mm-hmm. So he knocks out.
Just real
Cyclops
quick before we get into this, like when Sinister starts attacking the X-Men, Scott starts trying to convince Morph to help. There's a scene where in the background, Sinister is just holding up two hands and just shooting beams at the X-Men, just like in the background. He's not moving. He literally just has like all of his just holding his fingers up like, and then shooting lasers.
Beams. I mean, we said it before, like, if you like beams, you will like this show.
Absolutely.
So he zaps a thing on his belt, which gives Cyclops control of his powers again. And Cyclops fucking goes into rage mode.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Cyclops is pissed. You have fucked with that dude's marriage, and that is apparently the one thing you don't fuck with Scott Summers on.
Yeah, exactly. Or his friends or anything. And he goes and gives his little speech, and he starts zapping Sinister, and his beams actually will hurt Sinister because of their weird connection or what have you.
Proving that Mr. Sinister is not a Summers brother, because that doesn't work.
Exactly. He's like a Summers cousin. But yeah, this is pretty great. And Sinister eventually retreats. It's like the one thing he didn't expect to happen. Yeah. And this is like, as far as supervillain planning, this is great planning. Like the whole thing. Like, let's get Cyclops alone so I can pit the entirety of the Nasty Boys against him. All I have to do is get this collar on him, and then I win. Because this is the one thing. If he can shoot beams, I'm fucked. If he can't, I'm good.
And he still has the Kami crystal, so like mission accomplished. Yeah,
absolutely. So they get around, and Cyclops is super pissed about this whole thing because he thought, of course he's pissed. I would be pissed. Mm-hmm. Like, let me have one fucking day. It was my wedding, you assholes.
Absolutely.
And Morph is just like, I got to get out of here. They're, trying to say like, you have a place. And Morph is like, nope. I have to leave. I have to get, better, eventually. And everyone's understanding except for Wolverine. Everyone's just like, Morph he's going through some shit, buddy. Like, let him fix himself. He's still got that bug in his head. But Wolverine doesn't allow it because he's my friend. He's the only one that can make me laugh.
And we've been
what a burn to all the rest of your friends, man.
Seriously, like you're still teammates with these guys.
Were you pretending every single time I fucking pulled your claw, dude?
Probably, absolutely, yeah. Real quick, there's a moment where like Scott is making his big speech about like, I'm gonna go after him. I'm gonna, he's not meant the last of me. And Jean's like, don't worry about it, baby, it's cool. And he's like, well, we're not even married. And she's like, it's no problem. We're basically married in our hearts, and we can always get married someday. Like, is it
like,
off
tomorrow,
motherfucker?
You did the ceremony. Go down to the courthouse.
Let's go to see a justice of the peace and get this shit done, Jean Grey. What are you waiting on?
Like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Absolutely
ridiculous.
And at the end of this, we see Xavier and Magneto, who have finally met up, and there's this, shapeshifter confusion where Xavier is like, well, you've never lied to me before, Eric. And Eric's like, wait a minute, you told me to be here. And then avalanche, and they're buried in snow.
Yep.
One thing I like about this...
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, one thing I like about this season is, because I got bored last night and just watched, like, all of this season. So I'm kind of caught up on it. Yeah. This Magneto and Xavier thing will kind of bookend each episode for the next 6 or 7 episodes. Like, it's a running plot line that Xavier is not a part of the team. They don't know where he is. They're doing a really terrible job looking for him, but he's off in like wherever he's at, which we'll find out here in a bit. Like doing stuff with Magneto. And I think that's a really cool, like the comics do that a lot, and pulling that kind of like narrative structure from the comics,
like
I think
subplotting.
Is really good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same thing with looking for Morph. Like that becomes kind of a subplot for a few episodes too. And they do it, they handle it really well. Mm-hmm. Like this is a great season opener. Like I think this is, as good or better than Night of the Sentinels. Like it wouldn't have worked as a series opener, But knowing all the characters and stuff, like this is super, super good. Like nice. As we ended on such a high note, you know, there's little hints of darkness in the end of the first season, but we ended on this kind of the real victory. And this is a really good, like introducing insecurity back into the picture.
Yep. And also like coming out of the gate with this villain, like, you know, bringing Morph back, having Mr. Sinister being like, this is all really, really good. I love all of this.
These are the tales of
This week's character study that we're going to focus on is actually Mr. Sinister himself, a.k.a. Nathaniel Essex. And Gary, I'm going to be real honest with you. I couldn't really remember much about Mr. Sinister from the comic books. So I went to marvel.wikia.com and holy shit, this is a never-ending Wikipedia page. This just goes.
He's a longtime villain who eventually kind of struggles under the weight of his, like, them continually having to like kind of force him into new plots and do things. Like he started out fairly simple, you know, and also I feel like he started out not having like a real point. Like he was like a name. I think that's in canon. Like he was just a name of the person who organized the Marauders. The Marauders are the team that went down and slayed all the Morlocks and fucked up Angel's Wings. All these things, you know, and that was Mr. Sinister. Eventually they tied him into the Summers thing, and it just kind of kept getting more and more complicated to the point of incomprehensibility. So much so that like right when I stopped reading comics is when Mrs. Sinister started showing up. And I was like,
oh man,
wait a minute,
that's
like,
the way you make a character.
Yeah, well, there was a real period where that was happening. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I would kept making jokes about Girlactus, and then there was a Girlactus. So like, and again, this is not me being the, you know, why is there a girl Thor? Like this feels more arbitrary than that. Mm-hmm. You know, like a Lady Hawkeye, a new character taking the mold of the old character is one thing, but this was just when they were literally just gender swapping like every character for no particular reason. Like I don't know what I really feel like Mrs. Sinister is not a win for feminism. Like I don't think that's like doing much.
Real quick, some of his can we cover some of his aliases that he's had throughout the years?
Oh,
I think some of those are great, including like they go from just like bog standard Nathan Milbury, Arnold Backlund to Pale Man, Nosferatu, White Devil.
he's a real like Nyarlathotep figure, like in his power set and where his kind of the place he takes in this thing. And I really wish that comics in general, but X-Men comics specifically, had the courage to like allow things to be unexplained.
Yep.
Because if like comics hate a mystery because they can set them up and then revealing them makes them a lot of money. So no matter how shitty of a comic Wolverine Origins was, revealing that made them tons of money, you know, because they can hype it. If this guy was just literally like this mover and shaker behind the scenes, like we knew his motivation, but he was this kind of other dimensional thing, you know, which is what his powers, like there's a lot of Lovecraft shit in this thing. Like if you look at his picture on that Marvel wiki, he's on a H.R. Giger sex throne. Like he's surrounded by fucking tentacles. Like he is very much like an outsider kind of presence, and they could have really leaned into that. Mm-hmm. You know, the Adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey, like I think is the first comic where they go back to the 1800s and deal with him like Nathaniel Essex being a contemporary of Darwin.
Yep.
And stuff like that.
Or like when he goes to Darwin's funeral and like makes fun of him. And yeah, like, oh, I guess you didn't evolve. And like, burn. The dude's dead. Yeah. Back off. You're talking to his mom.
Yeah. But like, I feel like that would have been a time to be like, yeah, he made contact with the fucking outside world, like the Chthonians or whatever. And like, this is what he's doing. Like, keep this as a intentional mystery as opposed to kind of an accidental truth that ended up being really confusing. He's also a character who like they try to lean into the gray morality of him, where he's like, he's the evil science character. So the version of him in Age of Apocalypse, like ended up turning against Apocalypse because he doesn't want to destroy the world. He wants to advance his research, and like he is against anything that will fuck that up.
Yeah,
you know?
He wants to turn the world into a lab, basically. Like, that's his whole goal, is to be able to experiment on anything and everything that he possibly can. So that works against Apocalypse's motive to bring the apocalypse. Just to back up your point that comic books maybe shouldn't explain stuff. This sentence, I looked at this sentence for like 5 minutes and tried to like just tear it down, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I wish that we didn't know this stuff. Like, listen to this. As Mr. Sinister, Dr. Essex was necessary for the birth of Nathan Dayspring, the Ascani son, who Madame Sanctity worshipped. Dr. Essex even went so far as to dig up his dead son and experiment on him. I don't need to know any of that. I don't need to know Nathan Dayspring, that's for sure.
Well, Nathan Dayspring is Cable.
Cable, yeah. Like I know. I just like I don't need to know that Cable's name is Nathan Dayspring. I mean, is he
all
like
the shit with Cable's
with Blade?
origin is like a Scott Lobdell nightmare. Like, I don't know if he's actually the person who wrote it, but it has his stink all over it, where it's like all about fate and like mysticism and shit. And like, if they had just given like it sucks that all these things, like Sinister is the place where concepts are really cool, but the details go to die.
Yep.
You know, like the actual specifics of it just end up being really tedious.
I can guarantee you that I guess spoilers for the post-credit sequence of Age of Apocalypse, but like we see like the Exis Corporation like stealing some shit from there, and I can guarantee you that 30-second clip is going to be the best thing about Mr. Sinister if he shows up in a movie. I don't need to see that dude like fully realized in a movie.
The fact that it's a corporation gives me a little bit of hope, though. Like, if they kind of take this, like, I'm more or less a mortal being, and like lean into the power and resources that he has, and like the fact that he hasn't shown up at that point, like maybe he is working behind the scenes, and they're going to lean into him being kind of smart and mysterious.
What if he steals Xavier's money? Right? Like, that's the kind of shit that I want to see him do.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Mainly because I don't like Xavier that much.
I feel like it would be very awesome if like they leaned into that side of him, you know, and I think that would be really cool. As of, it's like, it's not like he is irredeemable, you know, like there's still good stories for it, but like, I feel like they're probably not the most modern stories. Before we totally move on from this highlight though, have you ever read the Brian K. Vaughan Ultimate X-Men run?
I don't think so. I may have. It depends on how early in that run it was. I don't remember. But I've read like the first 50 or 60 issues of Ultimate X-Men.
It's probably in there because so that started out with Mark Millar, moved on to Brian Michael Bendis, and then it's a really long Brian K. Vaughan run, which is like excellent. It's really, really good. And his first arc is about the ultimate version of Mr. Sinister, which is fantastic. I don't know if but it's just this guy, he's got mind control powers, like minor mind control powers, but he's mostly just like a really strong dude with like a bunch of tattoos. And he worships, like he's being given orders by this figure called Apocalypse. And eventually they reveal it, and spoilers for this comic from like 2001, but they reveal it, and he's constructed this kind of golem in his bathtub of Apocalypse, made of like costume jewelry and like, you know, cloth and stuff he's put together that's just talking to him. Like, he's just insane. Like, there's none of this backstory. There's none of this stuff in the future, none of this Darwin shit. So he's got all the same motivations, but he's just fucking, you know, bonkers.
I think I do remember that now that you're saying that, because I remember seeing that and the way he did Apocalypse and thinking that it was really similar to that thing that dude at the meat factory did in Preacher.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's not, except there's like no sex element, you know, to it. Like that's very specifically
sure?
Garth Ennis being real lowbrow. But it's kind of similar to that. But I love that treatment of where you can get the same kind of motivation and scariness. Like, he still kind of peels the team apart one by one, but he is, you know, he's just delusional. He's not, you know, doesn't have like all this ridiculous.
Yeah, he's not like meant from the stars and like has a fate and outside of time and all of those other like weird ass things that the X-Men get
garbage. Into. Yeah, and it also has a thing where he says like, Professor Xavier, I found your one weakness, stairs, and just pushes him down the stairs at the end of one of the episodes.
yes, I do.
It's like,
very specifically
like that run is so good. Brian K. Vaughan, before he kind of got up his own ass, like, is one of my favorite. Like, he reminds me a lot of he's like an opposite version of Peter Milligan, where like Peter Milligan is no good when he's working on other people's shit, but really good when he's just doing his own stuff. Brian K. Vaughan, I like him more when he's working on other people's stuff than I like him. Like, I love Ex Machina, I love Why the Last Man. Yep. The first like 4 trades of Saga are really fun, but like, you know, that kind of like far-reaching, unlimited freedom Brian K. Vaughan is not my favorite Brian K. Vaughan. I like him to have like some restraints, and that run is really, really phenomenal. He did a really good run of Mystique too, which is weird, but you wouldn't think so. But his Mystique run is really good. Check him out. I know you got Marvel Unlimited.
I do.
Gotta check it out.
Gotta check it out.
check it out. And that has been Character Highlight, Mr. Sinister.
These are the tales of the
All right, so now we're... I guess we should probably have mentioned earlier, but we're covering 3 episodes on this episode.
Yes.
3 episodes of the cartoon on this episode of the podcast. And we try to do 4, but the way that this season shakes out with the 2-parters and the 3-parters and the way that we kind of want to group them up, it just made sense to do the first 3 episodes on this. And then, we'll let you know what's going to happen.
We're jumping around. This episode will be long enough anyway. I'm not too worried about it. Moving on to XM203, Whatever It Takes. Original air date, November 6th, 1993. The Shadow King lures Storm home to Mount Kilimanjaro by possessing her young spiritual son, Mijnari. Rogue and Storm must travel to Africa to stop Shadow King and find a way to lure him back to the astral plane. What a fucking stinker.
Yeah.
I hate this episode of this cartoon. This is a recipe for things I think are really boring, though, for the most part.
Anytime the Shadow King is around, I'm kind of checked out. The Shadow King is to Storm as the Savage Land is to X-Men.
Everything. The Shadow King, because so the idea of this, like he doesn't have a body, he's like just this astral projection, thing. It comes down to it's like when Mr. Sinister's motivations are weird and mysterious. At some point in this episode, the Shadow King literally talks about controlling the mob.
Yeah.
He just wants to do crimes.
Yeah, that's it.
He just wants to make money. It's bullshit.
He lives in a dimension of thought, and the best he can come up with is I want to run a bookie system, right?
I'm gonna have a protection racket from my infinite mindosphere. Fuck you, Shadow King.
Oh, the Shadow King.
It's also a Storm highlight episode, and anytime the X-Men cuts to Storm's origin, I end up thinking it's pretty boring.
Yep.
Again, not to be, I talked a lot about how my first impression of Storm was all from the cartoon and it was pretty bad. This is a lot of that shit. I recognize that this is part of her origin, in the comics and stuff, but the actual unquestionably badass stuff that she does in the comics is not really reflected here.
No.
I don't think.
So we start this episode with a kid running around the African area, chasing a soccer ball and playing soccer with his dudes. Just a quick note. This dude is wearing a jersey with the number 23 on it. So either he's a real big fan of Michael Jordan from the Cubs from this area, or he's a real big fan of David Beckham playing soccer.
He's playing soccer, right?
He's playing soccer, yeah. But it's weird to see a kid in Africa have a Cubs jersey playing. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Did Beckham have a number? Do soccer people have numbers?
Soccer people do have numbers, and I looked it up. I was like, I wonder what famous soccer player had 23, and sure enough, it was David Beckham. So,
that's definitely what this is a reference to. Then he's bending it like Beckham.
He's bending it like Beckham, but in the red and blue of the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, it's the bootleg Beckham.
But this dude starts acting funny, and his friends kind of call him on it. But he sees this opening happen in a mountain off into the distance, and then instantly it's
a dimensional opening. An opening makes it sound like the mountain's actually opening up. He's seeing a rift in reality, an energy vagina in the sky.
Energy Vagina in the Sky is the name of my REM cover band. Just want to let you know.
yeah, EVS.
Yeah.
So back at the mansion, Jean detects an anomaly in Africa. She's looking for Professor Xavier.
Yep.
So she's not just I happen to be scanning. She's trying to find mental anomaly.
She's specifically using Cerebro. She's in the full kit. In the rec room, it seems with Cerebro now, but whatever. Storm comes in from the hospital. She's finally been released, and the first thing Storm does is just get dressed right back up in her uniform. So that's fine.
Did she ever get out of it?
Probably not.
She was just just slept in it. It just stinks. It smells like dried blood and sweat,
gross.
Piss.
Take a bath.
Yeah.
Jubilee makes a joke about Storm threatening to flood the cafeteria if they didn't let her go, which, Storm, again, that's a terrorist move, dog. There's family of people that are injured and wounded down there, and, people that anyway.
It's so frustrating because, this whole tension between mutants and humans is, right on front, Mm-hmm. And that's not the kind of joke you make if that's going on everywhere.
Yeah, that's the kind of joke you make if you want to give the Friends of Humanity some more power. That's what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, she's gonna drown babies.
So yeah, Beast assumes that this rip in the psychic plane that Jean has detected is from their time traveling friend Bishop, which is a real nice piece of foreshadowing because pretty soon we're going to get into some real Bishop shit. So that's a real nice thing to do. There's a couple moments of real nice foreshadowing in this episode.
foreshadowing and just there being consequences. Like, hey, the dimensions kept opening. Maybe this actually had some effects that we didn't expect. And that's pretty cool. Like, it happened. Like, be showing up here, did this thing. So it's not, Storm recognizes the town where she's like, oh no, this isn't Xavier. This is my son. What?
Well, she doesn't say that till we get to the town.
Yeah.
But right now she's just like, oh my God, that's my hometown. And then it flashes back, and then we see Mijnari. I'm really going to butcher that dude's name. We see this kid get possessed like by the floating like astral mouth thing, and all of a sudden his eyes go all mutant and he can float. And his friends are like, I'm getting out of here. We don't want to hang out with you anymore.
Quit floating.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Stop floating.
Yeah.
We're playing Monopoly. Jeez.
Yeah, we're playing soccer. That's cheating. So we cut over to Wolverine, who is looking for Morph, and he's in Brazil sniffing him out. Mm-hmm. And he becomes friends with the little monkey in a little adorable side plot that doesn't go anywhere.
Nope. Just the monkey seems to really like Wolverine, and like the guy that has the monkey is like, well, that never happens. And I guess trying to say that like animals like Wolverine is that.
I think that's the idea. I don't know. It's very weird that they're on like a skiff, and the guy driving it is the one who has the monkey, and the guy with the skiff is just like, mutants, I hate them. Just trying to just providing some background color until the monkey eventually.
Hey, skiff driver, what have mutants ever done to you, dog? Like, what are you worried about? They're not coming for your guns.
Like
they don't need them.
Yeah, ridiculous.
We go back to Africa when we see Storm and Rogue, who have apparently flown the entire way. Like, we've talked about this in the episode where Rogue flies to Scotland to go to visit Muir Island, where she like flew up and like landed on a plane and just like hitched a ride. But this time they were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to take any of our 4 or 5 jets. We're literally just going to fly over there. The village is in full flames, and then Storm comes out and says, like, a wall of rain to quench the flames, which just, like, solidifies why I don't like Storm in this cartoon right there. Just all in one. And then, like...
how many people died while you were doing the sentence?
Yeah, right? And Rogue is like playing this thing like it's a supervillain thing. So like Rogue is like, we heard that there was a kid with an attitude problem, and we're here to give him a storm adjustment or some shit like that. And I'm like, Rogue, what are you doing? Storm reveals that this is in fact her son. Dun, dun, dun. And there's a commercial cut, and it comes back. I was like, not really. I gave birth to him, but Storm saved his life when he was a baby by doing like the most basic CPR maneuver, which apparently
doing her job.
Yeah, literally doing her job.
Because Storm was a midwife for some reason. Like, what a weird.
Yeah.
Like that. Really kind of in the comics, she's a badass thief. And like she kind of extends from that kind of badassness. Like Storm is, can fight, and she's has this kind of dark history. Here, she's a midwife who eventually turns into a melodramatic like weather god. And it just kind of follows that she would be a midwife here. I don't think Mijnari, I don't think this stuff is from the comics. I could be wrong about that. The Shadow King is, but I don't think all the stuff with her son is.
I don't.
And
I don't
it just smacks of like a dude writer who doesn't know how to motivate a female character.
Sure.
Without like literally invoking motherhood.
He's my son. I mean, not biologically. He's not my bio son.
This is a godson.
I've never met the guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I expected to happen. Where do we go? So Rogue knows at this point, like Rogue kind of just knows who the Shadow King is, and they kind of invoke all this history of Xavier fighting this dude and imprisoning him and all this other stuff. And I'm like, did I miss a cartoon somewhere? Is there a deleted scene?
Well, it's pretty weird because it's like the idea is that the X-Men had a bunch of adventures before the thing started, but the early episodes really do kind of lean into the fact that this is the X-Men getting their feet,
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they're not meant to be like an experienced team at this point, and this is kind of like a nod that they are.
I feel like so there's a deleted scene where we see like literally Storm's origin, like, and it's just Xavier and the Shadow King fighting in the weird like
and then the fucking mindscape. Yeah. I'm of two minds of this. Like, part of me likes things that imply a richer history than there actually is. Part of me feels like it's a little bit unnecessary, here, and it's part of why this episode feels so weird. So he does, the Shadow King, then monologues himself and reveals like his name and stuff, who he is. We switch back to Morph, Wolverine, who finds Morph tending a bar in the jungle.
Yeah, because
so he just goes to this like tiki jungle bar.
And this is a fun scene where like Wolverine is trying to talk some sense into Morph and try to get him to come back to the X-Mansion, and Morph is just fucking with this dude in the hardest way possible. Like, turns into Jean and is like,
or maybe it's love you're missing. When I'm with you, all I can think about is how much I'm in love with Cyclops. Who could ever love a freak like you?
No. And like just makes fun. Wolverine
she says, I'll never stop loving Cyclops. Not making copies like my wife.
Making copies.
It's the humor that I crave.
That's the problem. The reason that Wolverine gets caught off guard is because he really thinks all of this is funny. Like he's just laughing so much he can't fight anymore.
Into it.
So Morph runs off and Wolverine goes into a rage and like runs off into the jungle after him. Then we go back to Africa where we find out Storm isn't the mom but actually helped save the baby. I kind of got ahead of myself there a little bit. So Shadow King at this point, like basically like in front, possessing this child, like tells Storm like, oh yeah, I'll let him go as long as I can take your body over. And Storm is just like, sure, that doesn't seem like a problem. Like, Storm, what the fuck are you doing?
Like, you don't have to be a genius to have, or you don't even have to be like morally compromised to have at least a little bit of a concept of like the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't think you need to be, like a centrist to think like, oh, giving an evil mind wizard the power to control all the weather will ultimately result in more pain and suffering than can be extended to my super fast little soccer son. You know, like than Mejnari, like taking this thing, like one of these things should be weighted more importantly, Storm.
The only defense here is if she actually knows that all of the Shadow King is going to do is run a protection racket. Like if that's
exactly. Is it crime's going to go up?
Yeah, crime went up 7% since the Shadow King took over Storm's body. Okay, says Xavier.
Fuck.
That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
Call me when Magneto shows up.
Why would you do this, Storm? And Storm told Rogue not to show up. Rogue does show up at this point, but Storm fights her away because Rogue is like actually, listening to reason here at the very least, mildly. But then he takes over Storm.
Yep. And then Shadow King / Storm flies off. Then Rogue chases after him, and then I love this when he says that Storm, like Rogue flies up to him, and it says, and I don't think Rogue says anything, and he's like, "Oh no, Storm is currently occupied." And I swear to God, I thought he was about to say, "If you'd like to leave a message, please."
It'd actually be kind of bad, ridiculous, because Shadow King isn't like a fun villain the way that Mr. Sinister is. Or Magneto is like he doing something like that would at least give him a little bit of personality.
That's really all I'm looking for. But he also makes a reference to Rogue's body being crowded, which is something that we talked about on the episode of X-Men 1 that the movie didn't go into, but I'm very interested to get into it in the cartoon. That Rogue's powers comes from her being a supervillain and then taking Miss Marvel's memories and having all that bunched up. And I didn't quite realize that was going to happen so soon. I think that happens this season or at least next season.
Yeah, she gets an origin season. Yeah. I think it's next season, but she gets an origin story. So Morph leads Wolverine into a trap where he falls into a mine. Which at this point they're still just you get the sense that Wolverine just thinks they're just having fun because he says something like he teases Wolverine about being mad, like you don't get mad or something like that.
Or I'm in your like, this is what I made you feel. This is what I made you do. Like I got you this mad. I'm in your head.
And he's like, I'm always this mad. You should see me at the post office. Because like,
boom!
Okay, well, Wolverine, nobody's joking. Like he's got a bug in his brain. Wolverine, this is a story about PTSD, and you're fucking it up. Like
Wolverine's neck is on a swivel, just looking for Phil Hartman to pop out at any time. I know he's gonna do it.
My God.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. This fight, by the way, is just hilarious because Morph is bragging about being inside Wolverine's head, and then as he's doing this, he's morphing to all these characters that we haven't seen, or some that we haven't seen. One is Deadpool, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. One is Omega Red, and then the third one is a dude that I know, like I cannot remember
Maverick.
this dude. Say what?
I think it's Maverick. I think it turns into Maverick.
Okay, that makes sense. So, like, does Morph know this stuff? Because I don't even think at this point Wolverine really knows his history, right? Like, how does Morph know who Deadpool and Omega Red is?
Yeah, I I don't know.
Yeah, who cares?
I have no clue.
So they continue to fight, and then Morph turns into Wolverine, and then we get one of those classic things where Morph has claws. He cuts off Morph's fake claws, which, just like we said about Mystique, like, what bit is that? Where does that come from? Then Morph decides that since his old friends and enemies haven't been working out, let's just morph into a panther. And then
like a rhino.
And then
what is this fight? What is this subplot?
He morphs into I hate to mention Chalice Dungeons twice, but he morphs into a Chalice Dungeon boss.
Eventually into Sabretooth, and that's like, I guess the final straw for some reason. And he's like, I have to get through this, whatever this is. Like, you can't help me through this. I have PT fucking SD. Like, you are not a counselor. Having some beers with Wolverine is not going to fix this.
Yeah.
Stop it. Respect boundaries, X-Men.
Wolverine asks him, can you do the making copies bit one more time before you leave? and then Morph runs off.
Yeah.
At this point, we go back to Africa, and we see like kind of an internal struggle between the Shadow King and Storm. And this is represented in like this weird, like, hallucinogenic thing, and
the fucking mindscape.
The astral plane mindscape bullshit. And like Storm as a little girl is literally sitting inside or on top of Shadow King's hand, and like they're arguing back and forth. At this point, Storm seizes control of her body and then starts flying into the atmosphere with the idea of flying into space, and I guess killing both of them. What ends up happening is she passes out, and this action causes the Shadow King to be expelled. So Storm falls, Rogue catches her, and then the Shadow King is like loose. He's like the demon mouth astral thing again.
Yeah.
At this point, we realize the kid can see Mizunari. Thank you. Can still see the terror and psychic reality on the mountain. So he baits the Shadow King. Like, I think he literally throws a rock at him or something. Like, there's some weird stuff that happens. Like, Rogue throws a rock at the Shadow King for no reason.
Everyone's tossing stones at the Shadow King for some reason. I lost track of what was going on here because it's unspeakably boring. Like eventually, like, what you really need to know is that, like, the Shadow King ends up in the astral plane. Mizunari like tempts him into it, and then Mizunari has to run out of the astral plane. Like, he runs on this like mind platform to get out and barely makes it out in time as Storm reaches into the rocks and pulls him out. They get out, trapping the Shadow King in the astral plane. This is so fucking boring.
All of this.
Like, this everything about this, like, it was so hard for me to focus on. Like, in the best of times, like, I like this cartoon. I'm on the record as liking it. In the best of times, like, it's a cartoon where, like, I take notes, I watch it, but I, like, check my phone every once in a while, I usually have another window open. Just because it's a, it's not going to hold my complete attention. Also, my attention span is, like, irreparably damaged.
Thank you, Twitter. Appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's 100% true. Like, it sounds like an Andy Rooney bit, but, like, it's true. My brain is broken in a way that is bad.
I'm looking at Twitter right now while you're talking because I kind of got bored in the middle.
It's yeah. I don't blame you. Like, it is. It's very, very boring. And it's all these elements of, like, X-Men mythos I don't like. Like, the astral plane, I think, is boring in anything. Like, it's not just X-Men. Like, anytime the astral plane shows up, like, get fucked. Mm-hmm. Mindscape, mind battles, not into it. I
will say the animation here, actually, like, of the Mindscape, like, the presentation here is pretty cool. Like, I kind of dig what the Mindscape looks like. I'm just bored by everything. Our kid is just literally running through. Like, that's all he's doing. He's just running on, like, a pink ribbon. I wanted to see if Xavier was in there, it would just be them, like, holding their temples and, like, staring at each other while, like, lightning bolts shot out at each other. Like, there's no real cool way to represent this stuff. No, man. Do you remember in the comics when Xavier goes to fight the Shadow King, he, like, suits up. Like, he has a whole fucking suit of
I guess
armor.
He does have a mind suit. Like,
he's like, I'm going to be fucking Ronin. This is my jam.
It's not like decking in Shadowrun where it's, like, hard to make visually interesting. It's the kind of thing I would prefer just to have be, like, hand waved, but, I guess there's an entire villain about it, so they can't just have, like, Professor Xavier concentrate for a little while and then just have him pass out. I actually like the treatment of it again in that Apocalypse movie where, like, they were in the Mindscape and it was presented as the mansion, but everything was kind of surreal and weird.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, that was all right. I like that.
I feel like it's a better way to do it. This is just like, yes, it's kind of like in a Trapper Keeper cover kind of way. Looks a little bit neat, but I just don't care about the stakes or anything. And like Wolverine getting morph, like I want that to happen ultimately. And the actual morph storyline continues in the show and is like kind of good. Like the episode where Morph rejoins the team is actually like pretty good, if I recall. But this episode is just a lot of stuff I'm just not that interested in, you know, happening. Like, I'm just not interested. Like, I like my characters here. I like the fate, you know, I'm interested in the fate of them, but I just don't like what they're doing very much. And to cap it off, like, this is where we find out that Xavier and Magneto, where they're at is the Savage Land. Which
Your
is
favorite
like,
X-Men place.
I fucking hate the Savage Land so much.
Oh,
like, it's so stupid.
It's so boring.
And, like, I don't know why them losing their powers lets Xavier walk. Like, Xavier lost his powers from getting stabbed in the spine, you know, in, like, the Korean War or something like that. Like, he definitely did not lose his power, like, or lose his walking, rather, his ability to walk. But he can walk for no good reason. Now he doesn't have his powers, and every episode is going to have, like, 2 minutes of Xavier and Magneto without powers doing dinosaur adventures. Like solving dino crimes.
And they do something interesting with that, with Xavier and the most recent movies, where like he has to kind of make a choice between walking or using his powers. I think that's really interesting. But here it just ends up being like that Wolverine movie where literally the whole thing is just, oh, Wolverine doesn't have his powers anymore. Like, that's a great superhero movie. Show me a Superman movie where Clark Kent just writes an article for an hour and a half. Like, that's not what I'm into.
It's pretty bland, and it's bland despite the fact that there are like dinosaur riding savages everywhere. Like, there's so many dinosaurs in here, and how do you get this boring with this many dinosaurs? Like, it's like the Savage Land question. Also, the person who like finds them on their monitor, who ends up being the villain of this, I'm pretty sure is that weird little, like, the Savage Land mutates. It's like this little big-headed guy who's like not very cool. So they're you know, that's the same way we were introduced to Mr. Sinister, and now you're going to do this with like Brainchild? Fuck you. Like, I don't need this.
Oh yeah.
And
that pretty much close. Well, I guess to do our due diligence, like, because there is a funny moment where they've stood up out of the snow, right, and like realized Magneto doesn't have powers, and again Xavier can walk. Almost instantly, like people and flying dinosaurs come down, and one of them picks up Magneto. Xavier reaches over, and because it's an X-Men cartoon, on top of the avalanche snow is just a boomerang, just hanging out. Yes. Picks up the boomerang, throws it extremely accurately, hits the rider in the head, which causes the dinosaur to let Magneto go, which makes no sense to me unless they're like somehow connected.
Silent.
Unless this is like one body wearing like a costume like this, like a dude's riding dinosaur costumes. Magneto falls into the river. Xavier jumps in after him. They go over a waterfall, to be continued.
Yeah.
And we're done.
Xavier, who, like, I assume I don't remember how to swim. Charles, I bet you I can still.
Yeah, I bet I can still do this. And also, not even talking about like just the physical ramifications of his legs being atrophied for so long because he rides around in a floating wheelchair. Like, dude's got no muscle structure. Like,
yeah. There's you know, you haven't been able to walk since the Korean War. And I know it's different in the cartoon. Don't at me. But so this season,
at me, I'll take it. Bring it.
This is a good like microcosm of the way the season works, where it's like pretty uneven. I think it is good. Like, the season is generally really good. The high points are better than the low points are higher than the low points are low. Mm-hmm. But some of the like one and done episodes in this are pretty boring.
Yeah, there's an upcoming episode with Beast that is just like, oh wow, it was just not fun to.
Well, and it's also that episode, like, it feels like it could just write itself. Like, if you have this character, you know, this episode was going to come, the kind of Beast character episode. I imagine like writing Beast episodes is like, I know when writers get started on The Simpsons, as like a trial by fire, they make them do a Lisa episode because those are not, you know, they don't lend themselves to jokes quite as well. They're more challenging to write, according to the writers. So like, I imagine that's what Beast episodes are like in the show.
But our next trio is going to be fun. We're going to get introduced to Omega Red. We're going to get introduced to Alpha Flight. And then we're going to take a trip down the bayou, Gary. We're going to see some Gambit in Louisiana. I'm excited about this one.
We get the Gambit Gambit origin episode, which is really fantastic, where it's got him just going like, Thieves, assassins, thieves.
Oh, the accents! I watched it last night, and it's just so good. Like even with the dumb external stuff, which just makes no sense.
Man, the
anywhere.
externals.
But wow, is this stuff good? I'm in.
That episode is called Externally Yours.
Yes, externally yours.
Good night. But this is a good season for Weird Lore, and I was looking at kind of planning out the rest of it. So season 3 of the show, people have asked like, hey, will this show keep going after the cartoon? We have a lot of cartoon left, guys. The season 3 and 4 both have like 20 episodes in it.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to get us
seasons total, if I remember right.
There's 5 seasons.
5 seasons.
But the 5th season I think is like 13 episodes, or it's like the first 2, but the 3rd and 4th season are huge. And then there's like a crossover, the Spider-Man animated series and stuff. Like we have a lot of stuff to cover. So do not worry, we will be in X-Men animated land for quite a while.
And if once we run out of that, if the show is still popular, there's other X-Men cartoons, there's other failed X-Men pilots. Like we have some X-Men media that we can cover. So I'm very excited. You guys just keep downloading the show and leaving iTunes reviews, and we will keep looking for bad X-Men stuff to watch and talk about on this podcast. Because
we talked about X-Men Evolution, I'm a little bit worried about that being too good. Like if there's not like shit to make fun of, like what do we do? But maybe by then, there'll be we'll just start doing Kyle XY.
Sure, I'm into that. Let's do it.
Yeah, there we go. We'll figure something out. But so thank you very much for listening. If you like this show, the best way to support it is to go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kick us a couple bucks a month. The only reason why the show is around and coming out is because of your support. So if you would continue that would be awesome. If you if you're able to, that's great. If you're not able to, spread the word, let other people know about what we're doing, and rate and review us on iTunes. That's also incredibly helpful.
Yeah, tell your mom about it. She might be into this show. I bet she likes the X-Men, and you guys have never talked about it. Go talk to her. Call your mom. Tell her about Days of Future Cast.
Yeah.
Ask her about Gambit. Hear the story.
Yeah. So support. See what your mom has to say about the Nasty Boys. Like she's probably got an opinion on Ruckus. And until next time, is there anything else?
Where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at GARYBUH at Gary Buff.
And I'm at JG Greer. And that's it for today. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Good night.